Hello and welcome to the Fighter's Take, brought to you by BetDSI. My name is Hollywood Joe Tussing, pro fighter, MMA trainer. I'll be your host for this evening, and tonight we are talking the possibility of a rematch between Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. So BetDSI has just put out a line for the possibility of a rematch of UFC 229 that has to happen within 2019. That is Khabib, a minus 250 favorite to the comeback on Conor McGregor at plus 200. Speaking of BetDSI, if you look down the description, you will find a link over to their site. Sign up for an account and they will give you up to $500 free money with your first deposit. So, the first fight opened up with Khabib, a minus 185 to Conor's plus 155. It swung up and down from minus 160 and closed out at a minus 200 for Khabib Nurmagomedov, who ultimately breezed through 4 rounds inside the octagon with Conor McGregor. Spent 3 of those 4 rounds just completely dominating the Irishman. The first round, he showed that he could control the Irishman and take him down. Second round, he rocked Conor with an overhand right and then held him against the fence and ground and pounded him for the entire second round. The third round, it looked like the tide of the fight could possibly turn. It stayed on the feet the entire round, basically. Conor defended a couple takedowns, and there was a lot more stand-up action, but Conor just didn't look like himself. His footwork looked off. He looked slow, sort of sluggish in his combos. He didn't have the same countering ability that he normally does. It seemed that he was just looking for the slip counter, and his timing was off. So Khabib was able to land a few good punches, including that overhand right in the second round that really rocked Conor McGregor for, I would say, the first time in his career. And by the fourth round, Conor was basically too tired to really do much, really put up much of a fight. The fight ended with Khabib on Conor's back with they're calling it a neck crank, but it was more just a face squeeze. They didn't really have much room to spin or to turn since they were against the cage. Conor McGregor pretty much tapped to the pain of getting his face squeezed really hard. If he would have held out and tried to fight that, Khabib would have been forced to let go and try to reapply the rear naked choke or do something different. But Conor McGregor ultimately tapped as soon as Khabib started to squeeze. It showed that he really wasn't trying to be in the octagon with the Dagestani Eagle whatsoever. The fight was over. Khabib stood up, said a couple things to Conor. Even there was some audio from after the third round. Conor says to Khabib, "It's just business," and Khabib turns around and says, "Hey, guess so," like, yeah, whatever. So after the fight ends, we get the melee. Khabib jumping the fence after Dylan Dennis, always an unclass act, was yelling things at Khabib from the corner. Khabib jumped the fence, goes at Dylan Dennis. We get Zubair Turkagov and I can't say these guys' names. 2 UFC fighters. Turkagov was the one that came over the fence in the red shirt and hit Conor in the face, but Conor wasn't the victim in this. He actually punched Khabib's cousin Abu Bakr in the face as Abu Bakr came up over the fence trying to get to where Khabib and Dylan Dennis were. So Conor actually started the whole melee that was inside of the cage after Khabib decided to exit the cage and go eagle style off the top rope at Dylan Dennis. It was pretty crazy, but I hear a lot of pundits talking about, or a lot of the fighters talking about wanting to clean up the sport and all of this, and I don't see a possibility of that happening because we're in the entertainment era of the UFC with the new owners, with the WME in there and all of the different interests that are in that $4.2 billion buyout. There's no way that they're not going to basically reality show and TMZ as much as they can, as many storylines and as much drama as they can get out of the UFC. They're going to squeeze it, just like we saw the lead up using the bus attack as the main promo. They want things like this to happen because it sells fights. Does Conor McGregor deserve a rematch? No, he gave up. He quit. He didn't want to fight anymore. He didn't get choked out. He didn't go out on his shield. The moment that things really got hard inside the octagon, He quit. Just like he did with Diaz. He put up no resistance. He did not try to fight the choke with Diaz. He did not try to pull the hands off against Khabib. He just gave up. But we will get a rematch if circumstances permit, because it's the WME era. It's the money fight era. A fight between Khabib and Conor sells more to the general public than a fight between Khabib and Tony Ferguson, or Tony Ferguson and Conor and Kevin Lee, or Khabib and Kevin Lee. You can do musical chairs with anybody in the lightweight division, but the only fights that really make any money in the lightweight division is going to be Khabib and Conor, or Conor and Nate Diaz. So we will have to see what happens with Khabib. He's going to be sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. They said they are going to open an investigation into the entire situation. Khabib will probably get penalized by the UFC as well, a possibility of being stripped of his title if he is suspended by the Athletic Commission. That means he can't fight, he can't defend his title. He could possibly be stripped of the lightweight title, and he puts his visa in jeopardy. His father, Abdul Manap, has not been able to get a visa to come and be in his corner, and now with doing something like this, there is a possibility that he won't be able to get back into the country after this little melee at UFC 229. So we see a lot of people talking about cleaning up the sport. Tony Ferguson, Khabib even said it in his post-fight not interview. It was more of a statement because he didn't take questions. But that's not what we're going to get. This is the ESPN era. If you look at what they were saying, Stephen A. Smith and a couple other guys, they're talking about Stephen A. Smith was going easy on them for what happened and this and that. These are fighters. These are people that are training to go into combat and actually throw blows and punch each other. They didn't attack other people. It was fighters going after fighters for things that were said between the fighters. And it's going to be things like ESPN and TMZ that blow these things out of proportion and make it into something that it wasn't. It wasn't an inhuman act by Khabib Nurmagomedov like they said in that in the Stephen A. Smith interview that I saw. It was a fighter going after another fighter because he was saying things about Muslims. Like, it makes complete sense. If it was Ron Artest jumping into the stands and punching a fan, then having to change his name to like Meta World Peace, yeah, that's some crazy. This was just fighters that wanted to fight. And no matter what the UFC does, no matter how many people they put in place, if somebody wants to do something like this, if they want to do something that would be completely out of character at any other time, I don't really see any way they're going to stop it preemptively. There was no way to stop Khabib from scaling the fence and going after Dylan Dennis. There's no way that you're going to know that Turkagov is going to come from the backside while everybody else is preoccupied with Khabib and throw shots at Conor when he's not looking. So this is something that, I mean, a little bit of the fight spilled out of the cage just a bit, but nothing super shocking like the media is going to make it or like they are making it. And I think that's what we are going to get, is an undeserved rematch for Conor McGregor and Khabib if Khabib isn't sanctioned for too long. And with the way things are, everything can be paid for. We see that John Jones is back, so why would they keep Khabib out for too long? They have money to make. The Nevada State Athletic Commission has money to make. There's no reason to stop that money train rolling for a little scuffle outside of the cage. So I'm expecting to see this fight happen, and I don't know. It'll depend on what Conor McGregor decides to show up for this fight, because it definitely wasn't the Conor McGregor that we thought was going to show up. The guy that showed up to this fight wasn't there to fight the Eagle. If you guys take a second, look down in the description. You'll find a link over to BetDSI. Follow the link, sign up for an account. They'll give you up to $500 free money with your first deposit. You can put down a bet on the possibility of a rematch between the Irishman and the Dagestani. It'll be interesting to see if they do book this fight. what the lead up is like. If Conor McGregor decides to talk a whole bunch of smack again, it's hard to do after you already got stomped out. We saw that Cody Garbrandt was a lot less lippy to TJ Dillashaw in part 2, and Conor McGregor really didn't say too much to Nate Diaz the second time either. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if they are able to book Khabib versus Conor one more time before the end of 2019. Thanks again. I appreciate you guys watching. I will talk to you soon.